What up, everybody, and welcome back to the Bible Podcast 101. I'm Tommy, and this is Nick.
Hey,
We just want to say how grateful we are for all the viewership you gave us in episode 1. We, right now, are currently at 127 views, and we are just so grateful that all our friends and family are watching this. So what we ask is, here for episode 2, that you do the same. You just share it with friends and family, and you keep spreading the good news. We're so grateful for all of you. We got our tea and hot chocolate here.
Sir, yes.
It's a little bit of a rainy day, but we got light today, and we
Yeah.
talked about light last week when
True
God said,
story.
"Let there be light." So now we got light, a little bit more vibrant today. We're super excited to be here for episode 2. Something we failed to do last week is we were talking about kind of a little bit about ourselves, but we didn't talk about our day jobs. So I am a police officer at a local department, and Nick here.
Yeah, I'm a pharmacist at one of the hospitals here in California.
Right. So last week, actually, I was technically off, but I believe Nick had work that day, full
Yeah.
shift,
Working
tired. But that's how much we like doing this. So that's how motivated we are to do this. It's something we look forward to even after our day job.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to throw that out there. Now, I mentioned last week in Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 through 5, I believe we hit.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about there being light. Something I failed to touch on that Nick and I had discussed is in life, they always say, be so good at something that when you walk into a room, everybody knows who you are and you don't need an introduction. Well, the interesting thing about Genesis here is it's just in the beginning, God creates the heavens and the earth. And there's no who is God? Who is this God? He's just chapter 1, page 1, verse 1, boom. God created the universe because the point of this is he's all powerful and all knowing, so he doesn't need an intro, which most people need an intro. So it's kind of a cool thing to see here.
Yeah, it's funny how, for us, coming with this podcast, we're coming out of nowhere, and people need to have, grasp, oh, are these people, sane? Do they have any professional background, any Bible history?
Right.
So we're trying to, explain ourselves and give us credit and validation. But with God, he already knows that he's full authority, full creator. He doesn't need to say oh, it's me and Jesus in the background. We have all of our angels and we're all glorious in heaven before this. But he is just portraying to the Jewish people that, this is our story. And in a way, it's kind of like a children's book, the way he describes creation. And it gives them, these early humans, a way to grasp the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. I agree. So today, we are going to jump in. I had mentioned we did Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 through 5, and we spoke about light and darkness and the separation of the two. So we're going to pick up from Genesis 6, if that's okay with you.
Before we do that, I know last episode we had Jersey, my dog, kind of barking in the background. I just wanted to hammer in the last point that we were trying to get across before we cut it short, and just that parallel from John.
Yep.
But just highlighting that God and Jesus was there at creation. So John chapter 1, verse 1 to 5.
Yes.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. With him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. So just hammering the parallel that John in the New Testament is just mirroring the language of creation in the Old Testament, and that through God and Jesus all things are made, that parallel. And then also the spiritual parallel that Jesus, the life that Jesus has and the life that he's bringing forward, it shines in the darkness, and that darkness has not overcome it. And just paralleling that there was the first day that there was light and darkness. So just the two concepts are there, the two mirrors are there, and that's really powerful just to grasp those details.
Absolutely. All right. So picking up from Genesis chapter 1, verse 6, we're going to read to verse 8 here. So, then God said, "Let there be space between the waters, to separate the waters of the heavens from the waters of the earth." And that is what happened. God made this space to separate the waters of the earth from the waters of the heavens. God called the space sky. And evening passed and morning came, marking the second day.
Anything that's interesting for you here?
Well, one thing I'd like to point out is at the end it does say the second day. There's always a lot of debate on like, did this actually take 1 to 2 days, or was this actually like several years in between of this all this creation?
Right.
So that's just one thing I want to point out.
That's a
But
good point, definitely.
I found it interesting that he's like, let there be space between the waters to separate the waters of the heavens from the waters of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting how technically at this point God's creation of earth is like still perfect and there's no sin introduced onto earth yet, but he's already like separating earth and the heavens. Because why would God do that if earth was perfect and the heavens were perfect? My question is, why does there need to be a separation already? It's almost like a foreshadow into, he knows exactly what's to come, that sin will be introduced to the earth. And that would make sense to me because he's God and all-knowing. So he already knows how the story goes.
Yeah, and he's creative, so he already separated light and darkness and made that kind of shift. And then, yeah, here he's separating further things. So it might just be like him being a designer and just going forward with his plans.
True.
I think it is interesting where he separates waters. And like here in California, there's this whole idea of an atmospheric river. Usually we're dry here.
Yes.
And like right now there's like an atmosphere river that's causing like rain 3 times a week. So it's just interesting that this verse from thousands of years ago is so applicable, that there's a fact in science that we have waters on the earth and then we have vapors and waters in the sky. So there's nothing invalid about what this Genesis early verse is saying.
Right. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I think it's cool when you were saying about if it's a day or multiple years.
Right.
I snuck in last episode that the Earth was created in possibly 6,000 years and kind of just glazed over that.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to know, that's part of a young Earth theory where they're calculating everything as true, that creation portrays that it is created in days, and then we have all Genesis's genealogy, and from Adam to Abraham all the way to Jesus, they're counting all those years that were mentioned in the Bible, and they just say that if everything's true, the whole span of Adam to Jesus was 4,000, and then from Jesus to us it's about 2,000. And so yeah, take it with a grain of salt, do your research if you want, but yeah, this is not a space for debate, but yeah, all the information and greater debates are out there if you want to dig into that.
Yeah, and like just not overcomplicating it. I think it's just more about God's creation on the earth and how the world came to be about, and we're just learning kind of how he created the world. It's pretty that simple. Genesis is just outlining God's creation and the story of it and how great it is and how beautiful it is, and we get to enjoy it every day by the trees we see, the birds we see, the people we see.
Yeah. I'll read the next day.
Sounds good.
Verse 9, and God said, let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear. And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas. And God saw it was all good. Verse 11, then God said, let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds. And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. Any thoughts spark up when you read that?
I'm noticing the pattern of, and it's not like huge, but he just keeps saying an evening passed and morning came and it marks the third day. So he's still keeping track of the time cycle. Obviously, I know we had just discussed what is that time look like? We don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing that pattern throughout.
Yeah, because we could literally think it's one day, one morning, one night.
Right.
And then in a way, people say Genesis could be poetry, and it's saying just like this one day could be a span of 1,000 years or 1,000,000 years.
Well, what's interesting too, and what makes people think a little bit about what is an actual day, is when you look at the genealogy, I believe in Genesis, when they're talking about all the different people that lived, they're like, this person lived 950 years and then his son lived 700 years. So it's kind of like, are those like current like actual years that we're talking about here, or what is their definition of a year back then, right?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. But yeah, it's interesting.
It's almost like I think this is the first time he's really talking about like life with the seed bearing plants and the trees that grow seed bearing fruit. So I think this is the first mention of like life on the planet, which is interesting.
Yeah, before it was all matter
Right.
and water, sky. Yeah. Right. But yeah, it's interesting. Like coming from a pharmacist perspective and having like biology classes, you know, just come from this like ancient like first text. It's just really cool that there are like acknowledgments that, you know, there's seed bearing plants, there's things, seeds will then produce the kinds of plants and trees from which they came, and there's like different kinds of plants, different kinds of seeds. So just the idea that there is like DNA and different proliferations and different species, and it's as simple as God can portray it to like early people. He doesn't have to go into like, I made DNA and I made all this family genealogy and genus, species, and all that, but just simply he knows that he's making different kinds of plants and then later on different kinds of creatures. So yeah, it's just a simple way for us humans to grasp the creation story.
And going off of that, right, when Nick was talking about the land produced vegetation, all sorts of seed-bearing plants, and trees with seed-bearing fruit, their seeds produce plants and trees of the same kind, and God saw that it was good. So God's acknowledging that like life on earth is good here. And it's already showing you like if God's creating something, he obviously sees value in it, but it's just confirming when it says, and God saw that it was good. God sees life as good, important, and special in a way. And sometimes I think here on earth, we as humans can lose sight of life, all life being good and valuable. And sometimes we need a quick reminder of that. So I think that's a good reminder right there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and of course, as we read, we know that each day is good. So just grasping that, yeah, all of his creation, the way that he designed it and organized it from the beginning was good.
Yeah. All right. I will read verses 14 through 19. Then God said, "Let lights appear in the sky to separate the day from the night. Let them be signs to mark the seasons, days, and years. Let these lights in the sky shine down on the earth." And that is what happened. God made two great lights, the larger one to govern the day and the smaller one to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set these lights in the sky to light the earth, to govern the day and night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw it was good. And evening passed and morning came, marking the fourth day. So the pattern is still there of marking the different days, but also the thing that jumps out to me right away, I know I'm skipping over some stuff, but verse 18, to govern the night or the day and night, and to separate the light from the darkness, and God saw that it was good. So God is already separating light from the darkness, which he actually talked about earlier in the beginning of Genesis, chapter 1.
Yeah, good connection. Yeah, and then it's so brief, like, that he makes these lights in the sky and, like, all the stars. And, like, you know, we have a visual of certain patterns of constellations that we see, and Orion's belt, the popular ones that we can see. But then, you know, now we have like all these telescopes and we can look at galaxies and just how vast our universe is. So it's just mind blowing. Like the early day humans, they only have certain views of certain stars, but the more we learn and more we understand how big and expansive the universe is and how great God is to design that. Even though it's only mentioned in like 2 verses here, but he created all of that in a day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Verse 20, God said, "Let the waters swarm with fish and other life. Let the skies be filled with birds of every kind." So God created great sea creatures and every living thing that scurries and swarms in the water, and every sort of bird, each producing offspring of the same kind. And God saw that it was good, and God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply. Let the fish fill the seas, and let the birds multiply on the earth." And evening passed, and the morning came, marking the 5th day. Any interesting thoughts?
Yeah, you go ahead and go first. Jersey is having fun distracting me a little bit.
Yeah, we have Jersey down here. Here's your nose. There she is. Hey, cheers. But yeah, there's our third podcaster getting her voice in.
So I guess right off the bat, now we're seeing like let the waters swarm with the fish and the other life. So we're seeing right away, like more life again.
Yeah.
This time, like animals instead of just trees. And plants.
Right. And same thought that there's every sort of bird,
Yes.
they give offspring to the same kind. So yeah, same principles that there is an order. There's DNA. It's not like a bird's giving offspring to a random other bird. I don't know, a toucan. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it also let the fish fill the seas and let the birds multiply on earth. He's talking about, reproducing and continuing life on earth. So his plan is for life to continue inevitably on earth. So that was his intention.
That is true. Yes. I acknowledge we are at the 16-minute mark. I guess we can just keep going. We have some good energy to finish up this chapter. But yeah, if we need to splice it, we'll just keep splicing. But
cool.
Yeah, we'll just keep going forward.
So verse 24?
Yeah.
All right. Then God said, "Let the earth produce every sort of animal, each producing offspring of the same kind, livestock, small animals that scurry along the ground, and wild animals." And that is what happened. God made all sorts of wild animals, livestock, and small animals, each able to produce offspring of the same kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make human beings in our image to be like us. They will reign over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, the livestock, all the wild animals on the earth, and the small animals that scurry along the ground." Really quickly, something that's really interesting about that when he starts to talk about making the humans, he kind of already puts like a hierarchy on life in a way. Not to say that not certain life is more valuable than others or anything, but a lot of times I think people, we're talking about human beings here, and they are supposed to reign over fish in the sea, birds in the sky, the livestock. And honestly, sometimes in this day and age, it's unfortunate to see, but people care more about like a dog than sometimes a human being. And I think it's important to remember, like, hey, we got to take care of each other as human beings.
Yes.
And that's pretty much what God's saying here. Like, there is a hierarchy structure to this. So we got to make sure we're taking care of each other. Not to go too in depth on that right now, but yeah.
That's a good point. Yes. Yeah, with the hierarchy, it's actually true because, the fish and the birds, they're all like in their elements, the water, the sky.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's interesting, like if there is a hierarchy and a value, like we do appreciate like the minds of a dog and the emotional intelligence of these land creatures that have brains on some level. And then then God creates humans above them.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Do you want me to continue with 27?
Oh yeah, let's just finish this chapter 27.
Right. So God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Then God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and govern it. Reign over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, and all the animals that scurry along the ground." Then God said, "Look, I have given you every seed-bearing plant throughout the earth and all the fruit trees for your food. And I have given every green plant as food for all the wild animals, the birds in the sky, and the small animals that scurry along the ground. Everything that has life." And that is what happened. Then God looked over all he had made, and he saw that it was very good. And evening passed, and morning came, marking the sixth day. Cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, just the progression and the order and the provision that God puts in place. So him giving us hierarchy, but then the trees and the fruits of the plants were already made, and that they're available for humans now to eat and then sustain and thrive on. So just interesting that God is a God of order, not chaos, and that he creates things that are good, and he has the authority and the creative design to make everything the way it is.
Absolutely. So that was the end of Genesis chapter 1. So we completed that. We'll probably pick up on Genesis 2. You want to say next week? Or...
Yeah.
Okay.
Our whole goal is to make this effortless. So whenever we have time, like we have jobs too, and we're pretty busy. We work late. So yeah, it's really out of our own free will and our own joy that we're putting this content out.
You mentioned we have an email, right?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Okay. So if you're interested, maybe, I think it would be cool sometimes to field questions to the best of our ability. So if you have questions, I'm sure we can open up our email to receive some from people.
And there's a comment section in the YouTube.
That too. Leave your comments or questions there. We'll do our best to like keep reviewing those and maybe answer them from week to week. We'll be going through Genesis pretty much. Like we're gonna try to go pretty chronologically through the Bible, I think, is our plan. But if there's certain things that you have questions about too in your own like journey, in your own study, if you're like in a completely different part of the Bible right now and you have a question, maybe you can shoot that our way and we'll do our best we can to maybe field it or even answer it on a video if we think it has like a good tie-in or value to what we're talking about that day.
Yeah, so I know we're at the 20-minute mark. We'll probably cut this video in half. But yeah, thanks to everyone who supported us, all of our friends, family across the country. And yeah, we're just glad that we do have light here. It's 10 a.m. now, not 9 p.m. So we have good energy to like put forward this content. So yeah, we hope you guys see the progression and the value of what we're putting forward. And yeah, just keep subscribing, sharing, liking, and yeah, we'll see you in the weeks to come.
Yeah, have a great day, everybody.
Peace, guys. Thank you.